Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Indy on Sunday morning. It is the 17th today? I'll just check. You know me and my dates. But anyway, let's just check anyway to be on the safe side. Sorry, it's the 18th today. Anyway, new look for me, as you can see. New haircut, new beard trim. Went to the Turkish barbers and decided it was time for my twice annual haircut. Anyway, today I wanted to look at three subjects, and first one is the All Under One Banner March in Aberdeen. The second one is the Gay Pride March in Glasgow on the same day, and I also want to look at climate change and what Scotland ought to do about it. So those are the three subjects for today. The All Under One Banner March in Aberdeen was a huge success. Now, people always worry about the numbers of folk who turn up at such events, and of course the anti-independence crowd always like to try and bring the numbers down. And there are varying estimates for how many people actually appeared at the march in Aberdeen. Anywhere from 5,000, which was the police estimate, up to 12,000, which was the official figure coming from All Under One Banner. So thousands of people, I think we can safely say, marched down the streets of Aberdeen. Despite the difficulties put in their path by Aberdeen City Council, the march went ahead peacefully. Nobody was hurt, nobody was arrested, everybody had a good time. And we see a sight that we don't often see, which is a Union Street full of saltires. I think that was probably the biggest and most iconic photograph of them all from the weekend, was a sea of saltires stretching back into the far distance all the way along Union Street in Aberdeen. Aberdeen, once a sort of bastion of English oil interests and Tory land ownership, now changing colour from the red, white and blue of the Union to the blue and white of the saltire. More and more people now are switching from having been made perhaps reluctant no voters in the past to now wanting independence. Partly because of Brexit, and partly because, well, the last time they were promised all sorts of things if they voted no, and not a single one of them has materialised. And despite all of the scare stories, North Sea oil is not running out. In fact, the amount of new oil discoveries are increasing, with another new field coming on stream in the last few days. So stories that we're told here to keep us in our place, and the reality is always completely different. But what's interesting now is the fact that as far afield as Aberdeen, an area which traditionally we would never have thought to see, sea of saltires and people coming out onto the streets to join the march, that would have been impossible a few years ago. That would have been unthinkable. Getting a few hundred people to show up in Aberdeen even 10 years ago would probably have been very difficult. Same goes for the borders, incidentally. If you remember, there was a big border march in Gala recently as well, and thousands turned out for that as well, much to everybody's surprise. So the tide is turning, and I think that much is very obvious. To the second story, on the same day as the Aberdeen March was the Gay Pride event in Glasgow city centre. And to many people, the Gay Pride event in Glasgow, you would have expected to have been a relatively small affair compared to the massive numbers who attend the London and New York Gay Pride events. But no, the Glasgow Gay Pride event was massive. Nearly 10,000 people attended and thronged the streets in a carnival of colour. And again, this underlines the nature, or the changing nature, of Scottish society, that it is now fully accepting of all kinds of beliefs, all kinds of cultures, all kinds of lifestyles, and all kinds of people of all different types are all welcome and are all flourishing in the city and in this country in general. And this is what we need Scotland to continue to do into the future. So it's encouraging to see that happening, as well as independence sentiment increasing. The level of acceptance for the LGBTQ, I've got to get the Q in on the end, community is also increasing. People are not just tolerating, they're welcoming people now. I dislike the use of the word tolerant, because I always feel that when you say you're tolerant, it means you don't really agree with something, but you're putting up with it. Now, whether you are gay or straight doesn't really matter to me anyway. These are people's choices. These are people's lives. It's the way they are, and I don't think anyone can gainsay it. I don't think anybody has the right to hold anything against anybody for those reasons. So I'm not a tolerant person. I just believe that everybody has a right to be themselves, and I think that is what we need to, foster as a culture in Scotland. Not tolerance, but full acceptance. Tolerance is a word that should be thrown in the bin, actually, because tolerance was a way of getting to where we are now. It was the middle step between intolerance and full acceptance. Now, as far as I'm concerned, full acceptance is what we have to fight for. And if it hasn't got there yet, then we have to keep fighting. But it's my belief that we're almost there. The generation who were intolerant and then became tolerant are probably dying out. And those who are still around, maybe their attitudes are softening. I hope so. And finally today, well, it's quite a short broadcast because as usual I'm working and pushed for time today. The final subject today is on the story of the Icelandic glacier. I can't remember how to pronounce the name, but it is a volcano on Iceland which has traditionally been coated in ice for hundreds of years. And for the first time ever, the glacier has gone this year. There's just a little circle of ice in the crater of the volcano left, as it is basically succumbed to global temperature rise. Now everybody says, well, what can you do about global temperature rise and how much of it is made by human beings? Well, the problem is that some of it is natural, but most of it is being driven by our activities. The problem is that the people who can really make a difference are not just you and me. When you break down the amount of carbon dioxide and other pollutants that are poured into the atmosphere, the main culprits for all of this are industry, transport, and what was the other one? And heating and power generation. Now these are massive industrial, gigantic problems that are not going to be solved by just you and me. Transport, for example, it's not just about cars going electric. It's about electric buses, electric taxis, and ultimately getting rid of trucks, particularly diesel trucks, in favour of some other means of getting stuff about. So it might be more electric railways, it might be eventually electric or hydrogen powered trucks. But the problem is transport in general creates a massive amount of pollution. Shipping, for example, creates enormous amounts of carbon dioxide, monoxides and other nasty pollutants that get into the atmosphere that are bad for breathing. The same with diesel-powered public transport like buses and taxis. Very bad for us, and it builds up. So really, people in Scotland are not necessarily the ones who got the most to do to turn around global climate change. What really needs to happen is for government to get straight onto industries, get onto the transport infrastructure, and get onto energy generation and get it all swapped. Now in Scotland, energy generation is one area where we're really strong, where we have managed to virtually stamp out all kinds of fossil fuel burning. But the problem comes from us heating our homes in the winter time. And at the moment, most of us heat our homes with gas, some of us with oil, some of us with natural gas bottled, others with wood. All of them involve burning, and it's burning things that causes carbon dioxide. So we need to try and find a way to switch our heating systems to something a bit more benign. Now in some cases that might mean burning logs, but log burning is a renewable resource because you can plant more trees, the trees reabsorb the carbon dioxide released from burning the logs, and that's more of a balanced thing, but that tends to happen in rural areas, not a problem really. So we have to concentrate much more on central belt, big cities, and not just designing homes that are more efficient, but actually putting heating systems in which don't burn anything. Now that would be some passive heating by actually building houses that face the sun, by good window positioning, by solar panels to create electricity for the house, storage heating systems which will allow the house to stay warm through the winter time. These have not been tackled, and the government needs to urgently, soon as we become independent, I would suggest, we need to get onto this straight away. So the government needs to tackle the heating of homes in the wintertime as an urgent requirement, really. We need to get onto that as a matter of some urgency. It would need to be done over a couple of decades to convert fully from gas to electric or storage or solar or something. But we need to reduce that. About 20% of CO2 emissions come from heating your home. Or generating, the other one is generating power for your home. But the main culprits are industry and transport. Over 50%, nearly 60% of our CO2 output into the atmosphere comes from industry and transport. So we need to figure out ways of getting industries to clean up their act and cleaning up transport. These are very urgent matters now. We can't afford to wait around any longer. One of the reasons why becoming independent is so important is because it gives the Scottish Government control over all of these major areas of national infrastructure. So big businesses, all businesses, and all particularly manufacturing industries need to cut their emissions by a lot. In fact, they need to get rid of them altogether, really. And all of the transport infrastructure needs to do the same. We've got a long way to go, but we've made a start. Scotland is already tackling the nasty sort of 1/3 of the big polluters, which is energy generation. If we can then link up the energy that we're generating and create fuels which are carbon neutral, like hydrogen, for example, then we can use internal combustion to drive things like trucks. But we need to fuel them using hydrogen, because otherwise any other kind of burning will create carbon dioxide and again push the temperatures up. We've already seen some weather extremes this year. Heavy rains, flash floods, heat waves. This is the kind of dramatically extreme weather we can now expect to become normal in this country. In the past we've had, we're a country that's designed its infrastructure to deal with constant light rain and moderate temperatures. And now we're being asked to improve our infrastructure. The drainage of the country is going to have to be massively ramped up. Flood defences will have to be bolstered. The dangers of landslides and roads collapsing in the mountains are far greater when you have flash flooding. So all of these things need to be mitigated, and these are urgent issues that the government needs to tackle. And again, one of the primary reasons why I believe independence is vital now, not only for us as human beings here in Scotland, but for everybody, to try and set an example on how to do it. Scotland's already 1/3 of the way there with its energy production. If we can get the other 2/3 of industry and transport converted away from burning hydrocarbons and polluting the atmosphere, and also get away from throwaway plastics, then we will have demonstrated what can be done. Anyway, that's about it for today. It's a very good weekend, actually, with these two marches. Independence sentiment is spreading across the country now. The whole of Scotland is beginning to turn blue and white. And also the rainbow colours of the gay pride, or the pride march I think they now call it. I think the word gay has been dropped, but the pride march now shows not that just that we're tolerant, but Scotland accepts everybody as they are. And that's as it should be. And that's as every country should be. I'll leave you with that thought today. I'm off to go and do some actual work and make some money. But I'll see you all again on Monday, and I should be in the studio in Scotland at 7 Monday night at 7 p.m. I'll see you then. Bye.